So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Khalid Ahmed, and I welcome you all to today's panel discussion on accelerating digital transformation with data and analytics. Now, according to a report by Gartner, data and analytics are the key accelerant of an organization digitization and transformation efforts. Yet, fewer than 50% of the documented strategies mention data and analytics as fundamental components for delivering enterprise values. In an era where data has emerged as a new currency and analytics as a compass guiding organizations, our panel of experts is here today to unravel the intricacies and opportunities that lie at the intersection of data, analytics, and digital transformation. We'll explore how harnessing the power of data can not only drive operational efficiencies, but also unlock new avenues for growth and innovation that can also catalyze your organization's journey toward digital excellence. So get ready for a thought-provoking and enlightening discussion that will illuminate the path forward in this era of rapid technology advancement. Without any further ado, let's embark on this insightful journey of accelerating digital transformation with data and analytics. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished panel today, George Lynch, Head of Technology Advisory at Nasdaq, and Susan Elrich, Senior VP, Business Development at Nasdaq North America. Hey, George, how are you?
Hi, Khaled. Thanks for inviting me along today, and great to see Suzanne as well today. So just for those who don't know me, a bit of my background, so I've got some credentials to talk about these subjects today. I've spent over 30 years of my life and career in technology, trying to help organizations get the best value of their investment in technology, and of course, by inference and in reality, their data. I join you today from the West Coast, not of California, mind you, the West Coast of Scotland. So it's a bit more Silicon Glen than Silicon Valley today, Khalid.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today, George. And then we have Suzanne. Hey, Suzanne, how are you this morning?
I'm great, Khalid. Thank you for inviting me to participate today. So like George, I've also spent over 30 years in technology. Most recently, I have been really focusing on working with my clients who are on their digital transformation journeys. And I've really focused on a couple of areas of technology, obviously data and analytics, cloud, AI, automation. So really excited to speak with all of you today.
Excited to have you guys over here. Thank you for the introduction. All right. But before we start, I would just like to ask our audience to actively engage in the conversation. Just put your Q&A questions related to this topic in the Q&A section, and we'll pick it from there. Thank you very much. All right. So first things first, what does digital transformation means in today's context, and how has it changed over time? Susan, I would love to know your thoughts on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've really been working, in the digital transformation space since the term really evolved. So from my perspective, the way that I describe digital transformation is when companies are focusing on integrating and adopting digital technologies, processes, and strategies into their organization. And the reason they're doing this is because they fundamentally want to change how they operate and deliver value to their customers and their internal stakeholders. They will leverage modern digital technologies to enhance things like business operations, improving customer employee experiences, and adapting to evolving demands. I really have seen firsthand how it has evolved over the last few years. And this is a result of advancements in technologies, changes in customer behaviors, and increasing importance of agility and innovation to remain competitive in the business landscape. There's a few I'd like to highlight today, and I would like to start really with the adoption of cloud computing. Every customer I work with has embraced cloud computing because it's scalable, flexible, and cost-effective. And cloud really has enabled digital transformation because it provides easy access to advanced technologies, data storage, and collaboration tools. But I always tell my clients, simply lifting and shifting applications to the cloud, that's not really digital transformation. true digital transformation is when you think about how can you reinvent how you're working, how you connect with your customers, how do you come up with new ideas. So it really is a shift in mindset, strategy, and agility. And it really is, companies are doing it because they really want to remain competitive. The next one is really around focusing on customer experience. Now, obviously, customer experience has always been a focus of digital transformation efforts, but today's projects take advantage, like I said, of things like the cloud, data, AI, and analytics, really focusing in on things like personalization, creating omni-channel interactions for their customers. And they're doing this because they want to retain their customer loyalty. The next area that I've seen evolved is the increasing adoption of RPA and automation. Now, the reason why this has happened is because it has allowed companies to automate routine and repetitive tasks, and this allows their employees to focus on more complex and value-added activities. For example, one of my financial services clients has adopted RPA in their loan origination process. Now, this has allowed them to significantly reduce approval times, and it has enhanced their customers' experience. It also has increased efficiency, thereby reducing costs. Now, the last three sort of trends I'd like to talk about include IoT adoption, edge computing, and AI. Now, for years, when we think about IoT and all of the endpoints on, in things like manufacturing plants, telecom, et cetera, that data has been collected for years from these endpoints. But only recently are customers really able to leverage this data to make real-time decision-making. For example, some of the manufacturing clients that I've worked with, they're now able to collect the data from their manufacturing plants, from all the endpoints, and this allows them to create real-time dashboards for improved monitoring. And it also allows them to leverage machine learning to use this data for things like predictive maintenance, quality control, and even the creation of new business models. Now, edge computing has emerged to process the data closer to the source rather than relying on cloud data servers. This reduces the latency and really also enables this real-time decision maker. And this example that I just gave about my manufacturing customers, this has really been enabled as well by this cloud computing. Another client of mine in the retail space uses edge computing for inventory management and personalized customer experiences, and also real-time analytics in stores. And finally, no discussion around digital transformation would be complete if I didn't talk about AI. Now, really what I'd like to talk about here is that data really provides the foundation for the successful operation of AI and machine learning. A number of early projects that I worked on maybe 8-9 years ago, we really faced a lot of challenges because of the lack of complete and quality data. Today, companies are really tackling this, and they're doing this through things like focusing on a data strategy, data quality, data governance policies, and also through the adoption of cloud data platforms.
Absolutely. And I mean, you talked about a lot of changes that have come in. And like you mentioned, I mean, cloud computing, cost effectiveness, agility, innovation, all these have definitely come in picture very strongly. And that brings my next question for George. I mean, George, I would like to understand from you, how crucial is data and analytics in driving successful digital transformation initiatives?
Thanks, Khalid, and thanks, Suzanne, for some of that insight you gave earlier. So I think everybody hopefully is on this call because everybody believes fundamentally that data analytics is indeed crucial to any successful transformation endeavor. And the word digital can be overused here. So when I use the word digital, I sometimes think about the word business. So it's all about business transformation, because sometimes when you use the word digital, it implies technology. And of course, digital transformation is business transformation and requires lots of different moving parts to be changed. And nothing could be more important to that whole process than the data and analytics you have. I personally, and this is the view I hold, which can be challenged by the audience, there are maybe 3 different ways in which I think data analytics are crucial. And we'll talk about them in a bit more detail now. One of them, of course, is using data analytics to actually identify the need for transformation in the first place. So, if you need to have a reason to change, there must be a business imperative to change. And we'll talk about this in a bit more detail, but using data and some of the great analytical tools out there that we have to identify the case for change. And in fact, it might not be the obvious digital transformation program that you thought it was going to be. So really being important as a driving force behind the case for change. I think also what's really important is that we use data and analytics to monitor the success of digital transformation, and indeed sometimes the failure. I've been involved in a number of digital transformation programs where they have crawled to failure or crawled to success. And without using good data and analytics to give you an indication about whether or not the program should pivot, indeed be stopped, or should be accelerated with investment. Really important you use data in that respect. And actually, if you think about every business is fundamentally falls into 2 camps. Either businesses are data businesses or don't realize they are data businesses yet. Therefore, having a very good, mature, capable data analytics organization and operating model within your organization is really important. Therefore, it may well be come into the scope of your digital transformation program. You have a data analytics work stream. So I'll just go in a bit more detail, but hopefully you guys agree that those are 3 of a number of the reasons why data analytics is crucial to the success of digital transformation. If you think about one of those aspects, which is really the identification aspect, we lots of organizations now live in this really highly competitive digital economy, and it really requires us to make really fast-paced and forward-looking decisions. So if you think about having a very mature capability in data is essential, because otherwise you're basing a lot of your business decisions and a lot of your investment decisions in digital transformation on effectively hearsay and instinct alone. And do you know what, guys, that might work, but good luck with trying that approach. I've seen many failures in that regard. The other thing to really think about is in terms of the drive towards things like personalization and customer experience. To be able to get that right, you need lots of data, and you need to be able to manage that data to develop things like personalization engines that recommend everything from classes to students in universities through to cheaper insurance products for folks like you and I. And therefore, most digital transformation programs I've been involved in, I would say over the last 5 to 10 years, I've included something around about single view of our customer, the patient, the student, as a clear work stream in the program. And I'd really recommend that from a master data management and importantly data quality perspective. And we'll say a lot about data quality in this call today. And lastly, and possibly most importantly, we talk about measuring the relative success of digital transformation programs. You need to be able to baseline your organization before you put that big investment in. So that might be the objectives of the digital transformation is to effectively be a bigger, faster, stronger organization. That's great. What does that mean by the numbers? And you need to come up with a series of metrics and a way to do a positive feedback loop. So really having a data analytics capability that can support and measure digital transformation is effectively a prerequisite for everyone. So I would make that case and argue that case on everybody's behalf in this call. So hopefully, Callan and everybody and Suzanne, that gives you an idea of certainly my view on why I think data analytics is crucial to the success of any digital transformation program.
Absolutely. And 100% agreed on that, George. And like we all know, data and challenges go hand in hand, whether it is providing the right set of data at the right time or effectively utilizing data sets for decision making. And having said that, Suzanne, my next question is again for you. What are the common challenges organizations face when integrating data and analytics into their digital transformation strategies?
Yeah, great question. I could probably talk 45 minutes just on the challenges that I've seen since, this is really what I've been focusing on for a number of years now. But I kind of distilled it down to some of the most common roadblocks that I see that I think are really important for organizations to think about. And the first one and most important is that you really need to have a clear strategy and roadmap. Without this strategy or roadmap, the initiatives kind of lack direction, purpose. You really can't measure the success of them. They need to identify goals. You need to have a step-by-step plan for implementation. You need to make sure that you have, the right people in place. Now, one of the things that I've seen over the last few years that companies are doing to address this is to have what they call a chief data officer. Now, George and I were talking about this. I think this is relatively new. 10 years ago, I don't think I was really coming across many chief data officers, but this is really a key role to ensure that from a data perspective, you have a clear strategy and roadmap. Now, the rest of the challenges that I'm going to talk about, I'm really going to categorize into people, process, and tools. So let's start with the challenges related to people. Number one, we all know we don't really like change. Change is hard, right? So, in the past, if I was a business user and I wanted a report, I'd have to maybe call somebody in IT, and they would go ahead and create that report for me and send it to me. And by the time I got the report, it was probably outdated. Now, today, you may have heard the term democratization of data. Now, IT obviously still plays a very crucial role in today's technologies, but the technologies today allow for any business user to have what I call self-service. So they can get real-time data, real-time reporting, and create them themselves. Now, the next challenge that I see is really when leadership is not aligned. And again, this goes back to having an overall strategy and ensuring that across the organization, their vision goals are aligned. And then finally, obviously, with the rapid pace of change in technologies, with new emerging technologies, the really big one companies are facing is that they have insufficient skills and talent. George, what are your thoughts on what I've shared around people, and how have you seen your clients solve these challenges?
So thanks, Suzanne. I think picking up on that last point about getting the right skills and talent to power the digital transformation programs, specifically around about the data and analytics space, I think it's something I've got something to say on that one, really. And this is all about having people in the digital transformation program and available to your organization in general that effectively view your organization through the lens of data. And we probably know those individuals. Some of us might be on this call who see the world through sort of data as a key viewpoint. Now, it's not always easy to get access to that talent, and there are a number of ways in which you can do that. If you're in a program mode, you might need some specific skills like data engineering for a relatively short period of time, say, to develop and implement a new data lakehouse or warehouse. So you could look to get that from external sources or third parties. But you also make sure you need to have a core team of people who are probably in the data analyst space, who continue to analyze the data that you have invested all that money in creating and curating, and finding one or two really qualified data analysts is probably a priority. Indeed, some organizations may also see the value of maybe even one or two or even a team of data scientists. That's really dependent on the nature of the business they work in. But again, those skill sets, we've found that, a true data scientist, and not just somebody who's been on the Azure training course, but a true data scientist with a mathematics background. Those are people who are hard to get a hold of, and you might look to the contractor market for a period of time, or even again partnering with some organisations who offer boutique services with the data scientists as a service, which is something that a lot of people have thought about taking up. So hopefully that gives you an idea of where you can go. The other thing, of course, is if you've got the time and the effort and you want to do it, you can also upskill existing employees to get to the point where they are able to, address that skill gap.
Great, thanks, George. Now let's talk about challenges related to process. I think the number one thing that is most important related to process, we've already kind of talked about it, is ensuring that you really have a documented and agreed to data strategy, data quality process, and data governance. People have to trust that the data is complete and correct. And that's why having these in place is so important. Another challenge that I see in my customers from a process perspective is around change management. And again, kind of already talked about change, anything that guaranteed is change. And so poorly executed change management, if you don't have a strategy in place, can lead to employees being dissatisfied, impacts to productivity, project failures. And so you really need to think about communication and training as well around what a change management process looks like. And then finally, I'd like to talk about unclear key performance indicators, or KPIs. Now, it seems pretty intuitive that the only way you can measure the success of your digital transformation project is to have well-defined KPIs and objectives. But unfortunately, I have not always seen this to be the case in my customers, and it's because it can be challenging. And that's why it kind of has to start top down when you think about your strategy and your objective, and then kind of filter down to what the KPIs are that you want to track progress so that you can make informed decisions. George, what are your thoughts on the 3 process challenges, and how have you worked with customers to address any of these?
Right, Suzanne. So I think I'll focus on, and I 100% agree about your point on data quality, and I'll pick that one up because it's a good question. So I would say that in my experience, there's a huge difference between the perception of data quality, and that's both a positive or negative perception, and reality. And if I was given some advice, and we've talked about this earlier, actually measuring data quality through tools like, for example, off the top of my head, something like Great Expectations, where you can actually create data quality scorecards, and you can actually put a number on data quality, and you can also track it upwards and downwards. It's something I would, definitely recommend any organisation does, but particularly when they're going through digital transformation, because ultimately you'd hope that you come out of a digital transformation with better data quality. Not necessarily, but that's not always necessarily the case. And you mentioned KPIs, and we'll talk about KPIs later, I think, in the conversation. But this is all about measuring the right things. So I'm a big fan of, when you do KPIs and identify them, KPIs, they define behaviours. So if the digital transformation program doesn't have the right KPIs, you're going to start measuring the wrong things, and you won't get the outcomes you need at the end. And that's where data analytics and data, data itself becomes really important in terms of measuring the right things.
Okay, thanks, George. So the final area we want to talk about here is around technology. The number one challenge that I see related to technology are the integration challenges. We've already talked about just kind of the rapid explosion of emerging technologies, and that's going to continue as we go into the future. And so that at most of my clients, what I see are they might have incompatible systems, legacy systems. They're trying to move to the cloud as well, right? So they have kind of a multi-platform approach. They typically have data silos, and so they're really looking to modernize their data. So it's definitely something that I see almost at all of my customers that they should really think about and address. And then the final one is around vendor lock-in. And I think this one is, something most organizations are thinking about is, best of breed versus, having multiple tools that may address similar problems. George, what are your thoughts on these technology challenges?
So particularly, again, on the last point you made about vendor lock-in, it's a really good one, actually. So there are some times when vendor lock-in is not a bad thing as long as you manage it. However, I would say that having a multi-cloud, multi-vendor, best-of-breed approach to your technologies, I'll absolutely avoid vendor lock-in if that's something that gets your procurement guys and operations guys really worried on a Sunday afternoon when they're thinking about things. But even in the data space, we think about data analytics. It's not a bad idea to have a mix of vendors and products. So, for example, you could have Azure Synapse as your data warehousing tool, but combine that with something like Databricks for your lakehouse, and maybe even combine that with something like Informatica DQ for data quality. A mixed approach to how you solve the problems and challenges and opportunities around about data and analytics is not a bad approach, I would say. But also, you just have to weigh up the pros and cons. And sometimes some of the vendors have a complete enough solution that means that there's a cost point. You go, I can live with the downside. But again, that's a choice that everybody in this call has to, and probably has made in the past.
Thank you, guys. And Susan, thank you for sharing all the use cases you've been talking about, and thank you for the tag teaming, George and Susan. And I mean, George, I'll come back to you again.
Yeah.
So what are some of the unique things that you've witnessed in the transformation era? And what are these emerging technologies or trends do you see as a game changer in data analytics for accelerating digital transformation?
So really good, another really good question, Khalid. I don't know where you came up with these questions, but they're good ones. So I'd like to focus on a number of things. Generative AI, I couldn't give you a question on emerging tech, an answer rather than emerging tech without mentioning generative AI. Business intelligence, which is not emerging, but certainly has increased in usage and its expectations over the last few years. And a couple of new-ish terms that we've seen with our clients, data fabric and data mesh. But I also recognise there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's happening in the data and analytics space that may be equally valid. So if I think about generative AI and data analysis, and we've actually used this in our own organisation, looking at some trends within soccer or football, however you want to call it, in Europe and the US. And can generative AI be used as a general purpose data analysis tool? Well, if you look at things like GPT-4, and then there are some large language models that do a reasonable job on data analytics. And in fact, I think they'll help some data analysts and data scientists for some of the grunt work they have to do. But there are also some emerging niche tools in this space, things like narrative BI, that I think could ultimately be a game changer and maybe worth people on this call having a look at. It's just one of many tools out there. And possibly a term to look out for is the rise of something called generative AI analytics, which is the combination of data analytics and generative AI that, is another example of where Gen AI might be a huge disruptor in a number of industries. In terms of business intelligence and situational awareness, that just continues to increase as we over the last few years, and the adoption of BI to be able to keep pace with everything, and the idea of this holy grail of self-service or democratized business intelligence. I've got to say though that requires a high degree of data literacy. So it's all fine and well putting Power BI in the hands of the CIO, but if the CIO hasn't got can't understand or interpret reasonably or make some bad decisions based on what they're seeing on the dashboard, then I think you need to really have a data literacy program, which actually would be part of a work stream within your digital transformation program. I would say that's critical. And the last two I'd like to talk about are data fabric and data mesh. So data fabric, and there's such solutions that come from IBM, for example, which is effectively a fundamentally different paradigm and architecture to the data warehouses and lakes. And those in the call probably understand this, but it's an idea of, you don't have to pull all the data into the center like a warehouse to be able to get data analytics out. That relies on things like machine learning and artificial intelligence to create that sort of a unified integrated data layer. And really one of the main advantages of data fabric is it can, in theory, provide real-time actionable insights across a whole variety of different data sources that haven't necessarily been transformed or normalized. So we see that coming out as a thing that we have had a number of clients work on and we provided solutions for. And the last one really is data mesh, which is a concept that's actually, again, not been out that long. Martin Fowler and his team coined the term and did outline architecture a few years ago. And it's all about scale. How can you do analysis on data and historical data at scale? And it's based on a number of principles. I won't go into this a lot of detail today, but things like domain orientation, decentralized data ownership, data as a product, which is really important, self-servicing the underlying infrastructure, data infrastructure as a platform, and lastly, the idea of federated computational governance. But it's really data as a product that I think is really important for digital transformation programs, really. And I think that will come up more and more in digital transformations, where we go, hey, as an organization, we're going through digital transformation. We've been sitting on a bunch of really interesting data. We've never really got value out of it. And then we might well start to think about creating products out of them and, using the word that's often used, which is monetization. And really, I was thinking about this, Suzanne. I was wondering if you've got some views on, or any customers you worked on, where you would, this idea of monetizing the data that's in the organization, just to see if there's anything you've got to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So earlier, I was talking about the role cloud computing has played in kind of the evolution of digital transformation. And I mentioned cloud data platforms, things like Snowflake, Databricks, et cetera. There's many of them. And these cloud data platforms are one of the ways that organizations are now able to unlock the value of their data and turn it into a strategic asset for monetization. Now, all of these vendors have data marketplaces, if you're not aware, where companies can monetize their data sets. So one example I can share is I had a healthcare client. It was a smaller company. And while they had their own data, it really wasn't of scale to do the machine learning initiatives that they wanted. So they actually purchased a large patient data set from one of the cloud platform marketplaces. And this allowed them to create their machine learning models that had, the scope and breadth of data that they needed. Another example that I can share is I'm seeing a lot of data monetization in my financial services and manufacturing clients. And what they're doing is they're actually using shared environments where they're able to analyze and collaborate with, whether it's partners, vendors, suppliers. They're creating joint ventures, partnerships, and other collaborative data initiatives. So I think we're going to see more and more of this monetization, and really it's the technology that is now enabling this.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Certainly. And I'm also mindful of the timings here. So let's start the Q&A if we can.
Sure.
All right. So we've already got some of the questions during the registration form, and most of them look similar. So what I've done is I've combined some of the questions to just make one. The first question goes like that. And so then probably you also talked about technologies within the organization. So probably you can take this one up. How do you navigate potential resistance to change or adoption of new data-driven technologies within an organization?
Yeah. So again, right, change is inevitable, but people also don't like change. So again, I think I can refer to some of the things I've mentioned earlier. I think one of the things that you should definitely focus on is building this compelling vision and clearly articulating the benefits. You need to help the people within the organization understand how this aligns with the overall strategy and goal and how important they are to contribute to that success. I also mentioned earlier, involving key stakeholders is really important. You need to really make sure that the data is not owned by IT. It's really owned by the organization. That includes IT. It includes people in the lines of business. And you also need to address head-on, to your employees, what's in it for me, to kind of jump on this bandwagon, and also really address fears. Some people are worried that, will this affect my job? Will I lose my job? So I think you really need to hit that head on. And then finally, I would say highlighting quick wins. I always recommend to my customers is, kind of find a small scope, have some success, communicate that, out to the organization, and then build on that. Demonstrating these positive outcomes early can build confidence across the organization.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next question is for you, George. How do you explain the output of predictive analysis?
So I don't know who put that question in, but that's a really, really good question, which is code for George going, that was a hard question, but we'll do our best to give an answer, but it's a really good one. So explainability of predictions, or in layman's terms, being able to easily explain the output of predictive analytics. And let's think about this, Khalid and Suzanne. If you're going to base the entire premise of your digital transformation program on the prediction made by a very complex model that is only really understood by your data scientist, that could be a challenge. So there are a few ways in which you can address that. One of them is actually and this sounds slightly counterintuitive, but it's a reasonable one and seeing it work, is that you actually pick a less complex model. Now that means you come out with less accurate predictions, or less guaranteed predictions, but it's easier to explain the model to a layperson in terms of interpretability. So this is a balance between accuracy and interpretability. That just uses a whole bunch of different techniques you can use just to explain the model and explain why the predictions have come out the way they have. And I would say this is particularly relevant to things like regression and clustering models, and actually even more so with the rise of neural networks. So it's just about, it's a real balancing act. One of the other ways to do this, of course, is to use the data itself to explain its prediction and to be clear and transparent. We often use the word explainability and transparency together, particularly in AI, and thinking about using and being really transparent about the relative under or over representation of some of the data samples that were in the model, making sure that people are really clear about what's in it. And that makes sure that it kind of lets you kind of put the predictions into context and actually identify any mispredictions that might be made by the model. It's a really good question that was asked, and it's something that's kind of we've been thinking about quite a lot recently in terms of very complex models versus simple models and explainability and transparency. And I think some of the legislation will make that even more important for us going forward. So hopefully, Khaled, that's giving you a bit of I hope I've answered the question. If I haven't, somebody can contact me and tell me.
Thank you for taking that hard question, George. Next question. What do you see as a key skill set across the digital transformation field? And what is the highest in demand in terms of change clients, companies request? Let's take it, George, Suzanne.
Yeah, I can make start with that one. Just give me a tiny second there. Yeah, so I was going to, in terms of that question, it's clearly quite a broad field, right? And I was thinking more about technology-related roles that we've seen quite in demand from various people. So I would say, and these people are rare, but I would use the word pragmatic, delivery-focused enterprise architects. So enterprise architects can be accused of being in their ivory towers, but ones that can actually get their hands dirty and help make the change happen. You mentioned earlier, Suzanne, the rise of the CDO. So getting those individuals into your organization, we've seen more and more of. And I would say people who have got AI and specifically generative AI skills, and there are not lots of people out in the market who have that skill set. And why I say that at all is we run lots, and we are increasingly running more and more what I'd call generative AI 101 sessions for, frankly, board members and exec level members who just go, what is this all about? So having somebody in your organization, the skills that can explain Gen AI in a context that makes sense. And a couple of other things that I've found in my career, cloud architects as we move to the cloud and really understanding that. And I mean cloud architects, I don't mean people who used to be infrastructure architects, I mean proper cloud architects. And another one when you're dealing with complex change is there's an art to release management in complex environment. And that's just the last one I'd mention, Khaled, is that I think, getting a really qualified, customer focused, understands why you want to make a change on a Thursday afternoon and can organize that for you is really important. That was me.
There's one more question. I'm not sure, George, why you are in the hot spot, but I mean, let's take one more. As digital transformation progresses technology evolution within an organization, and as a result, democratics technologies such as low-code, no-code platform into the hands of business users, is there a risk to potentially generate more silos in the data landscape?
So that's a great question, and the short answer is yes. There is a real material risk that you put things like Power Automate, or there's a whole bunch of tools out there, right? Low code, no code, and you can put them in the hand of really competent business analysts, for example, or who really understand what they're doing. However, they may well, as without proper guidance, policies that are enforceable, may just end up with the same problem you had with Excel and Access. You just end up with 300 equivalents of Excel spreadsheets in your organization, fronting a bunch of low-code, no-code solutions, or 50 different Access databases. This is a really good question. Now, you just have to be able to manage that and understand that some IT organizations wipe their hands of the whole situation and say that's not my problem, what you really need is an alliance between the business and IT to say, so how do we get the best value out of low code, no code? Because there is a value to be had, there is speed to be had, and speed to market and value to market, and removing some other residual risk in the business. So I would say it's about creating the right process, the right operating model that means that you can bring to bear all the great checks and balances that your IT team can bring, whilst allowing the freedom of the business to create some point solutions that just solve a problem they've got today. And they don't want to put the request into IT and wait 3 weeks for it to be assessed and then 6 months for it to be done. It's just it's just a balancing act, and it's about having a big grown-up conversation and being really clear about it. So hopefully that answers that, Khaled.
All right. One more, just in context to the explainability. Yes, you have answered, George, about explainability. Any recommendations on balancing cost associated and prediction accuracy?
So I'm going to interpret it as the cost of creating and managing and getting in the model itself versus the value you get out of the model. That's a really, really good question. And I'm going to be really honest, Khaled, I don't have an answer to that. I think sometimes I've got a consultant background, and sometimes we're always supposed to have an answer, but I'm going to be really honest and say, hey, let's take that away and have a think about it.
Absolutely.
Because somebody's got the challenge, and it's a really good challenge.
Absolutely. So, we'll come back again, like I said.
Yeah, that's for the next one.
Right.
That's the topic for the next one.
Obviously, yeah. And we're almost on time, and I'm sure we could have continued for a longer, but given where we are, I'll just take a couple of minutes to summarize what we've talked about so far. And there were a couple of big takeaways from the conversation that I could figure out. We discussed about emerging trends, technologies, and challenges associated with integrating data and analytics into transformation strategies. One key theme that emerged from the discussion was increased adaptation of cloud computing, where organizations are embracing cloud computing for scalability, flexibility, and cost effectiveness. And then we also talked about data transformation. It is just not about technology. It's a broader culture shift towards data-driven decision-making, customer centricity, and continuous innovation. We also talked about the significance of adopting a customer-centric approach and leveraging data for personalized experience and improving customer satisfactions. Another point was around the people, process, and technology challenges, which Susan and George both tagged in very well. And they talked about the integrating challenges within integrating data analytics, wherein data silos, lack of skilled personnel, inadequate infrastructure, and a resistance to change within the organization were some of the common hurdles that we talked about. And lastly, technology trends are game changers for data analytics. AI, data mesh, cloud computing, Gen AI, data fabric solutions. Some of those holds immense potential for digital transformation. And at the end, finally, I would like to thank our panelists, George and Susan, for being so kind to give us some time and talk about all the interesting and insight stories about their experiences. And last but not least, I would also like to thank the audience for being such a wonderful audience. And thank you for your patience and time. Have a good, wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.